Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed how we're naturally drawn to things we don't fully understand? There's something about mystery and irresistible pull it has on us. It's that feeling you get when you see a wrapped gift and wonder what's inside, or when you meet someone who leaves just enough unsaid to make you want to know more. This universal curiosity is a powerful force. And today I want to explore how it can work for you in life and relationships. When you walk into a room, you have two choices. You can lay all your cards on the table, telling everyone who you are, what you do, and what you aim to achieve. Or you can hold back, letting people draw their conclusions based on what they observe. The first approach might seem logical. We want to connect, we want to explain ourselves, but often it has the opposite effect. People feel no need to ask questions if everything is already spelled out. They listen politely, nod, and then move on. But when you choose the second approach, something remarkable happens. Instead of pushing information out, you create space for intrigue, for curiosity to take root. Imagine meeting someone at a gathering who doesn't immediately launch into their job title or accomplishments. They engage in the moment, asking thoughtful questions, sharing insights sparingly. They leave you wondering, who is this person? What do they do? How can I learn more about them? That curiosity is the foundation of a genuine connection. It's not about manipulation, it's about recognizing the simple truth that people are naturally drawn to what they can't immediately figure out. This concept isn't just about social interactions, it extends to professional and personal relationships too. Think about a suspenseful story. When you pick up a book or watch a movie, it doesn't start by revealing everything. The intrigue builds as you uncover details bit by bit, keeping you hooked. Now, translate that to your life. If you leave space for people to discover who you are gradually, they remain engaged. They're curious, they're invested, and they come to you not because you pushed information at them, but because you left them wanting to know more. What's fascinating is how this principle plays into human psychology. We value what we pursue, not what's handed to us effortlessly. If someone has to ask you about your work or your passions, they're already more invested in the answer than if you'd volunteered it unprompted. And when people take the time to ask, they listen more attentively because it's something they genuinely want to know. But let's not confuse mystery with withholding. This isn't about being evasive or secretive. It's about mastering the art of subtlety, sharing enough to be authentic, but holding back enough to keep the conversation alive. It's about letting others piece together the puzzle of who you are, rather than handing them the completed picture. By embracing this idea, you're not just intriguing others, you're also protecting your energy. When you don't feel the need to constantly explain or prove yourself, you're free to focus on the things that matter most to you. You're not wasting time over explaining your purpose. Instead, you're living it. And in living this way, you'll find that the right people, the ones who resonate with your values and interests, are drawn to you naturally. You'll be surprised at how many doors open, how many opportunities come your way, not because you chased them, but because they came looking for you. So the next time you're tempted to lay everything out for the world to see, pause. Consider the power of holding back, of letting your actions and the moments you share with others speak louder than words. Because when you embrace the mystery, people don't just hear you, they truly see you. And that's where real connection begins, ladies and gentlemen. In our interactions with others, there's a tendency to believe that the more we share about ourselves, the stronger the connection will build. It feels natural, doesn't it? To lay it all out there, to fill the silence with stories of what we do, what we've achieved, or what we're working on. But what if I told you that the key to capturing attention and interest lies not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say? Think of a quiet pause in a conversation. It's not an empty space, it's an opportunity. When we resist the urge to explain ourselves too much, to fill in every gap, we leave room for curiosity to bloom. People begin to wonder about you, to imagine your story. And here's the fascinating part. When someone imagines something about you, their mind fills in the blanks in ways that often work in your favor. You become more interesting because they've engaged their imagination to figure you out. Let me give you an example. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, someone you've just met tells you, I'm a software developer. I work on artificial intelligence for healthcare. I've been in the field for 7 years, and I built a platform that's being used in hospitals nationwide. It's impressive, no doubt. But now there's nothing left to ask. They've told you everything. In the second scenario, the same person simply says, I work in tech. What happens next? Your mind begins to fill in the gaps. You start to wonder what kind of tech, what's their role? What's their day-to-day like? The conversation that follows is richer. Not because they shared more, but because they shared less. It's in their restraint that intrigue is born. This doesn't mean you withhold your truth or play games with people. It's about recognizing the natural rhythm of dialogue and understanding that listening and leaving space are just as important as speaking. When you allow someone else to take the lead in asking questions, they feel valued, they feel heard, and in return, they're far more likely to take a genuine interest in you. This principle is just as powerful in relationships. Think about your closest connections. Were they built on grand introductions where everything was laid bare? Or on moments of discovery where you slowly unraveled each other's layers? The most meaningful bonds often emerge when there's room to grow into the understanding of one another rather than having it all handed over on day one. In fact, there's a certain magnetism in silence. Not the kind of silence that's awkward or cold, but the kind that's confident and comfortable. When you're at ease with not filling every moment with words, it shows that you're secure in who you are. And that security is compelling. It draws people in without effort because it's rare and because it invites them to lean in and ask, who is this person? What makes them tick? This approach doesn't just work on an individual level, it's transformative in larger settings too. Consider great storytellers or public figures. They don't rush to explain every detail at once. Instead, they weave a story, leaving just enough unanswered to keep their audience engaged. They create a sense of anticipation, knowing that the power of silence and subtlety can be just as compelling as the words they speak. So how do we put this into practice? It starts with a shift in mindset. The next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to overshare. Offer just enough to spark curiosity, then let the other person guide the interaction. Notice how the dynamic changes, how they lean in, how they ask questions. It's not about withholding, it's about creating space for authentic exchange. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice that captures attention, it's the quiet confidence of someone who knows the value of what they don't say. And when you master this art of silence, you'll find that people don't just listen to you, they seek you out, drawn by the intrigue you naturally create. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. In every conversation, there's a quiet yet profound truth. People are drawn to those who make them feel seen, heard, and valued. Yet so often we fall into the trap of thinking that connection comes from telling others about ourselves, our work, our interests, our plans. But what if we shifted our focus? What if the key to making others genuinely interested in us wasn't about what we say, but about how well we listen? Listening is one of the most underrated skills in human interaction. When we truly listen, we're not just hearing words, we're paying attention to the feelings, the stories, and the emotions behind them. And when someone feels that you're fully present in the conversation, it creates an immediate bond. They leave the interaction thinking there's something special about that person. I want to know more. Imagine meeting someone who, instead of talking about their achievements, asks you thoughtful questions. What inspires you? What challenges are you passionate about overcoming? Suddenly, you find yourself opening up, sharing your own thoughts and dreams. In that moment, the connection deepens not because of what they've said about themselves, but because of how they've made you feel about yourself. This approach is transformative, not just in casual conversations, but in every type of relationship, personal, professional, and even romantic. Think about your closest friends. Aren't they the ones who've taken the time to understand you, to listen without judgment? And in turn, haven't you been drawn to them because of how they make you feel in their presence? The same principle applies when meeting new people. When you shift the focus from telling to listening, you're not just exchanging words, you're building trust and rapport. There's a natural tendency in all of us to want to share our stories. After all, our experiences are what make us unique. But here's the paradox: the more we focus on ourselves, the less engaging we become. People tune out not because they don't care, but because they're not given a chance to engage. However, when you flip the script and focus on the other person, their curiosity about you grows naturally. It's as if they sense there's something beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Now, this doesn't mean you should become a passive listener or hide your own voice. It's about balance. Listening actively doesn't make you invisible, it makes you memorable. It's about asking the kind of questions that invite meaningful conversations and offering glimpses of your own perspective, only when it adds depth to the exchange. This creates a dynamic that feels effortless and authentic. One of the most powerful aspects of this approach is its impact on how people perceive you. When you're genuinely interested in others, it shows. It's not something you can fake, nor should you try to. People sense authenticity. They know when your questions come from a place of curiosity rather than obligation. And when they feel that your interest in them is real, they're naturally drawn to you, not because you've told them how amazing you are, but because you've made them feel valued. This principle is especially powerful in professional settings. Imagine you're at a networking event. While others are busy pitching themselves, you take the time to listen, to ask the right questions. You stand out not because you've shared a polished regime, but because you've built a genuine connection. And often those connections open doors in ways you could never have planned. The same holds true in personal relationships. When we're deeply invested in listening, we learn what truly matters to the people around us. We understand their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. And in doing so, we create bonds that are built on empathy and trust, bonds that last far longer than surface level exchanges. Ultimately, shifting the focus from telling to listening isn't just a technique, it's a mindset. It's about recognizing that every person we meet has a story worth hearing, and that by giving them the space to share it, we create opportunities for real connection. And in those moments of connection, we become unforgettable, not because we've tried to be, but because we've allowed others to feel truly seen. So the next time you're in a conversation, remember this, it's not about how much you say, but about how deeply you listen. And when you master this art, you'll find that people don't just talk to you, they open up, they connect, and they keep coming back for more. Ladies and gentlemen, there's an old saying you've likely heard before: actions speak louder than words. It's a simple truth, yet one we often overlook in our rush to explain, announce, or prove ourselves. We live in a world we're encouraged to showcase every milestone, narrate every success, and tell people exactly who we are. But what if we shifted that focus? What if instead of talking about what we do, we simply let our actions speak for themselves? There's a quiet power in letting your work do the talking. When you show rather than tell, you allow others to draw their own conclusions. And here's the beautiful part: those conclusions are often far more powerful than anything you could have said about yourself. Imagine a person who consistently shows up, delivers results, and handles challenges with grace. They don't need to tell you they're reliable, competent, or hardworking. You see it in everything they do. And because you see it for yourself, you believe it without question. Now think about the opposite. Someone who constantly talks about their plans, their ambitions, their talents, but never follows through. Their words may be impressive at first, but over time they lose credibility. Why? Because actions are the ultimate proof of character and capability. People trust what they see, not what they hear. And trust, once earned through consistent action, is one of the most valuable assets you can have in any relationship. This principle applies across all areas of life. In your career, for example, there's no need to announce how skilled you are at what you do. Instead, focus on doing the work with excellence. Deliver on your promises, meet deadlines, and go above and beyond. The people around you, your colleagues, clients, or managers will take notice. They'll see the value you bring, and you won't need to explain it. The opportunities will come to you because of what you've demonstrated, not because of what you've said. The same is true in personal relationships. Think about trust in a friendship or partnership. It's not built on words alone. You can tell someone 1,000 times that you care about them, but it's your actions showing up when they need you, being there without being asked, that truly make them believe it. Words might make an impression, but actions build connection and trust that lasts. Now, does this mean we should never talk about ourselves or our achievements? Not at all. There's a time and place for sharing, especially when it helps others understand or connect with us. But the key is balance. Let your actions lead the way, And let your words provide context only when necessary. This way, what you say carries more weight because it aligns with what you've shown. There's another aspect to this approach that's worth noting, the confidence it conveys. When you let your actions speak, you're essentially saying, I don't need to convince you. You'll see for yourself this quiet confidence is magnetic. It's far more compelling than any speech or self-promotion. It draws people in because it's authentic, and authenticity is something people are always seeking, whether they realize it or not. This mindset doesn't just impact how others see you, it transforms how you see yourself. When you focus on what you're doing rather than what you're saying, you channel your inner energy into tangible results. You spend less time worrying about how others perceive you and more time creating value, improving your craft, and building something meaningful. And over time, this focus on action creates a momentum of its own. Success becomes a natural outcome, not something you have to chase or convince others of. In the end, letting your actions speak louder than your words is about integrity. It's about aligning what you do with who you are. It's about showing up, doing the work, and letting the results speak for themselves. When you embrace this way of living and interacting, you'll find that people don't just listen to you, they believe in you. And that belief, rooted in what they've seen, is far more powerful than anything you could ever say. Ladies and gentlemen, humility is a trait we often admire in others, yet it's something we can easily overlook in ourselves when the spotlight calls. In a world that constantly urges us to announce our successes, promote our talents, and prove our worth, maintaining humility can feel like swimming against the current. But humility is not about downplaying your abilities or hiding your accomplishments. It's about letting respect and recognition come naturally without needing to demand it. Think about someone you deeply respect, perhaps a mentor, colleague, or even a family member. What is it about them that earns your admiration? Chances are it wasn't their loud proclamations about how skilled, smart, or successful they are. It was the quiet confidence in their actions, their ability to remain grounded no matter how high they climbed, and the way they treated others with genuine respect. True humility is magnetic because it stands out in a world where self-promotion often takes center stage. Now, humility doesn't mean staying silent or invisible. It's about knowing your worth without feeling the need to constantly announce it. When you're secure in who you are, you don't have to seek validation through words or accolades. Instead, you let your work and your character speak for themselves. And here's the irony: the less you seek recognition, the more people are likely to recognize you. There's something inherently dignified about someone who doesn't demand attention, but commands it through their quiet competence. Humility also creates space for others to shine, and that's where its true power lies. When you step back from the need to prove yourself, you open the door for collaboration and connection. You show others that their contributions matter, that their voices are valued. And in doing so, you build trust and respect in a way that words alone could never achieve. Consider this in the context of leadership. The most inspiring leaders aren't the ones who constantly remind their team of their authority or accomplishments. They're the ones who empower others, who lead by example, and who are willing to admit when they don't have all the answers. This kind of humility doesn't diminish their authority, it strengthens it. It shows that they're human, relatable, and secure enough to share the stage with others. This principle applies not just in leadership, but in personal relationships as well. Think about the people in your life who make you feel valued. They're not the ones who talk endlessly about themselves or their achievements. They're the ones who listen, who make room for your thoughts and ideas, who treat you as an equal regardless of their own successes. That's the essence of humility. It's not about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. Humility also shields you from the pitfalls of arrogance. When you're too focused on proving yourself, you risk alienating others. You might come across as unapproachable or worse, insincere. But when you approach life with humility, you create an atmosphere of openness and authenticity. People feel comfortable around you because they sense that you're genuine. And in a world where authenticity is increasingly rare, that's a quality people will always gravitate toward. There's another benefit to humility that's often overlooked. It fosters continuous growth. When you're humble, you recognize that no matter how much you've achieved, there's always more to learn. You remain open to feedback, willing to adapt, and eager to improve. This mindset not only helps you grow as a person, but also keeps you grounded, no matter how high you climb. So how do we cultivate humility in a world that often equates it with weakness? It starts with shifting our mindset. Instead of focusing on how we're perceived, we focus on how we can contribute. Instead of seeking praise, we seek purpose. And instead of measuring success by the recognition we receive, we measure it by the impact we make. When we live with humility, something incredible happens. Respect comes naturally. People don't just admire what we do, they admire who we are. They see us not as someone trying to prove their worth, but as someone who already knows it and is willing to share it with others. And that kind of respect, rooted in authenticity and grace, is far more enduring than anything we could achieve through words alone. Ladies and gentlemen, in our pursuit of meaningful relationships, whether personal or professional, there's a subtle yet powerful principle that often goes unnoticed. Mystery holds more allure than explanation. When we feel compelled to constantly explain ourselves, to define who we are, or to clarify every detail, we unintentionally remove the very element that sparks interest in the first place. It's the unknown, the unanswered questions, and the sense of discovery that keep people intrigued. Think about the people who captivate you the most. They're not the ones who lay all their cards on the table at once. They're the ones who reveal themselves slowly, who leave just enough unsaid to make you curious. This isn't about being secretive or evasive. It's about recognizing the power of leaving space for others to engage with your story on their own terms. When you resist the urge to explain yourself fully, you invite others to take an active role in the interaction. You give them the freedom to interpret, to imagine, and to connect with you in their own way. And here's the fascinating part: when people fill in the blanks themselves, their perception of you often becomes more positive, more engaging, and more memorable than anything you could have constructed through words alone. For example, think about someone who introduces themselves by saying, "I'm an entrepreneur with a passion for solving big problems." That's intriguing, isn't it? Now compare it to someone who goes into exhaustive detail about their business model, funding sources, and operational strategies in the first conversation. While the latter may be informative, it leaves little room for curiosity. The mystery, the spark is gone. This principle extends beyond introductions and into the way we communicate overall. Sometimes less truly is more. If we explain every nuance of our actions, every motive behind our decisions, or every thought in our mind, we risk overwhelming the listener. But if we share just enough to set the stage and then let them ask the next question, we create a dynamic that's far more engaging and collaborative. Mystery isn't just about what you withhold, it's also about what you reveal. It's about sharing your story in layers, allowing others to uncover them at their own pace. Each layer adds depth, making the connection more meaningful and memorable. And when people feel that they're discovering something about you rather than being told outright, they feel more invested in the relationship. This approach is especially effective in professional settings. Consider a job interview or a pitch meeting. If you start by explaining every detail of your experience or idea, you leave little room for dialogue. But if you share the highlights and let the other person guide the conversation with their questions, you not only engage them more deeply, but also demonstrate confidence in your ability to respond thoughtfully. The mystery keeps them interested, and the conversation becomes a two-way exchange rather than a one-sided presentation. The same holds true in personal relationships. When you allow a sense of mystery to unfold naturally, you create space for growth and discovery. You're not just giving someone a static picture of who you are, you're inviting them on a journey to explore and understand you over time. And that journey is what builds lasting connections. because it's built on shared moments of revelation and understanding. But here's the key. This isn't about withholding information to manipulate or confuse others. It's about trusting that who you are, as you are, is enough to spark genuine interest. It's about having the confidence to let your actions, your presence, and your authenticity speak for themselves without needing to over-explain or overshare. When you embrace this mindset, you'll find that people don't just listen to you, they lean in. They want to know more. Not because you've demanded their attention, but because you've earned their curiosity. And in a world where attention is often fleeting, that's a rare and valuable connection. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself fully, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what can I leave unsaid? What can I let others discover on their own? You might be surprised at how much more powerful your presence becomes when you allow a little mystery to linger. In the end, it's not about withholding who you are. It's about sharing yourself in a way that feels natural, engaging, and inviting. And when you do, you'll find that people don't just listen to your story, they become part of IT. Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of rewarding those who understand the value of patience. In a world driven by instant gratification, we're often tempted to rush to declare our intentions, to make sure everyone knows exactly what we're doing and where we're heading. But sometimes the most effective approach is to let time do the talking, to trust in the process and allow your progress to speak for itself. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about cultivating the discipline to stay focused on your path without feeling the need to constantly broadcast every step of the journey. When you trust in your work and the direction you're headed, you begin to realize that success isn't measured by how quickly you achieve it, but by how consistently you move toward it. And in that quiet consistency lies a power that's far more compelling than any announcement or declaration. Think about the growth of a tree. You don't see the roots forming deep beneath the soil, but they're there quietly strengthening the foundation for something that will stand tall for years to come. If we were to rush the process, trying to force the tree to grow faster, we'd risk compromising its stability. The same is true for our efforts. Progress that is steady, thoughtful, and deliberate often goes unnoticed in the beginning, but it's the kind of progress that leads to lasting impact. When you allow your actions to unfold naturally over time, something incredible happens. People start to notice. Not because you've told them to, but because the results are undeniable. Whether it's in your personal life, your career, or your relationships, the consistency of your effort speaks volumes. And when others begin to see the fruits of your patience, they're often more intrigued and more invested because they've witnessed the authenticity of your journey. There's another reason patience is so powerful. It allows you to focus on growth rather than approval. When you're not fixated on proving yourself to others, you free up energy to refine your skills, to deepen your understanding, and to truly excel in whatever you're pursuing. And over time, this quiet dedication becomes evident to everyone around you. They see not just the results, but the integrity behind them, and that's what leaves a lasting impression. This approach also protects you from the distractions of comparison. When you're patient with yourself in your process, you stop worrying about how others perceive you or whether you're keeping up. Instead, you're able to focus on your own progress, on doing the work that matters to you. And when you're not constantly seeking validation, you're able to make decisions that are aligned with your values rather than the expectations of others. Patience also fosters resilience. Not every step of the journey will be smooth, and there will be moments when it feels like your efforts are going unnoticed or unappreciated. But when you embrace patience, you recognize that these moments are part of the process. You understand that growth isn't always visible, but it's happening nonetheless. And this understanding gives you the strength to keep going, even when the results aren't immediately apparent. In relationships, patience is equally transformative. It's about giving others the time and space to grow, to understand you, and to build trust. When you rush to define or control a connection, you risk missing out on the deeper bond that comes from letting things develop naturally. But when you approach relationships with patience, you create an environment where authenticity can thrive. You show others that you're not just interested in the outcome, but in the journey you're sharing together. Ultimately, patience is an expression of confidence, not just in yourself, but in the process of life itself. It's a way of saying, I believe in what I'm doing, and I trust that the results will come in their own time. This confidence is magnetic because it's grounded in reality. It shows that you're not chasing after recognition or approval, but that you're secure in who you are and what you're working toward. When you live with this kind of patience, you don't just achieve results, you inspire others. People begin to see you as someone who is steady, reliable, and authentic. They're drawn to the quiet strength you exude, and they want to be a part of what you're building. And in the end, that's what truly matters, not how loudly you've declared your intentions, but how powerfully you've lived them out. So as you continue on your journey, remember this progress takes time, and patience is the bridge between effort and achievement. Trust in your work, trust in your path, and trust that the results will speak for themselves. When the time is right, ladies and gentlemen, there is an undeniable power in letting people see your true potential without you having to announce it. Often we feel the need to assert ourselves, to constantly make sure others know what we're capable of, what we're working on, and where we're heading. But sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply show up, do the work, and let people discover our value for themselves. There's an intrinsic magnetism to the kind of success that comes without being constantly proclaimed. It's subtle but potent, and it speaks volumes about your authenticity and confidence. When you don't feel the need to talk about your achievements, your goals, or even your struggles, people start to recognize you for what you really are, not a collection of words, but a person of substance. It's in the quiet, consistent action that people begin to understand your true capabilities. There's a remarkable appeal to the person who doesn't feel the need to explain or justify their every move. Instead, their work, their presence, and their results say it all. Take a moment and think about some of the most impressive people you know, those who carry an aura of respect and admiration. Chances are these people didn't build that respect through constant declarations of their abilities. They built it through the steady, quiet execution of their craft, through a series of actions that spoke louder than words ever could. Their work becomes a testament to who they are, and that's what people are drawn to. It's this demonstration of skill, character, and integrity that generates trust and admiration without having to spell it out. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't rely on external validation. Instead of waiting for someone to recognize your worth, you simply trust in your ability to deliver and let the results follow. Over time, others will begin to take notice, not because you've been shouting your worth from the rooftops, but because they can see it in everything you do. And when this recognition comes, it's not shallow or fleeting, it's deep and grounded in the true value you've provided. Consider the difference between someone who constantly promotes their own accomplishments and someone who lets their work do the talking. The person who talks about their achievements is essentially trying to create a narrative that may or may not align with reality. But the person who lets their actions speak for themselves doesn't need to create any narrative. The reality is already clear. And that clarity is far more powerful than any carefully crafted story. This principle extends to many aspects of life. In your career, for example, the value of your work speaks louder than any resume or self-description. Instead of talking about what you can do, show people what you've done. When you consistently deliver exceptional work, others will come to you without needing to be convinced. Your reputation will precede you, and it will be built on the foundation of your accomplishments, not your words. Similarly, in personal relationships, the way you treat others, your kindness, reliability, and authenticity speaks volumes. You don't need to tell people how much you care about them or how dependable you are. Your actions communicate that far more powerfully than any statement could. And as time goes on, people will come to trust you because they've seen your actions align with your words. They will see that you are the person you've always presented yourself to be, but more importantly, they will see that you've shown up in ways that matter. But perhaps one of the most compelling reasons to let your actions speak is that it creates a sense of mystery and intrigue. People are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand or can't fully predict. When you don't tell everyone exactly what you're doing or what you're capable of, it keeps them interested. They want to know more. They want to see what you'll do next. And this curiosity makes them more likely to stay engaged, whether in a professional setting or a personal relationship. By withholding the full picture, you invite people to explore your potential on their own terms. This doesn't mean that you should never share your successes or your journey with others. There's a time and place for that. But the key is to do so in a way that feels organic and doesn't detract from the work itself. Instead of constantly talking about what you're going to do, show people what you're doing. Let your results become the story, not the narrative you create around them. The more you embody this approach, the more people will start to admire you for the substance you bring to the table rather than the noise you make around it. They'll come to understand your value, not because you told them about it, but because they experienced it for themselves. And this kind of recognition is far more genuine, far more lasting than any amount of self-promotion could ever achieve. So the next time you feel the urge to explain or justify what you're doing, take a step back. Instead of talking about it, just do it. Let your actions speak for themselves and trust that the results will do the talking for you. When you do, you'll find that people don't just hear your message, they see it, they feel it, and they respect it. Thank you.